This is a very exciting This is a very exciting conversation to be welcoming you to today, and a little outside of our typical audience at Mindful Materials. When Mindful Materials first saw a need to really promote and provide an overarching narrative for the various materials pledges out in the universe, we didn't anticipate museums joining the conversation so early. And yet, museums are the center of education and interaction and engagement designed to facilitate awareness of the past, present, and future. They spark curiosity and creativity. And so what better place could there be, actually? The Museum Materials Pledge presents an opportunity for exhibition designers and manufacturers to really align intent and action, to align the spaces used to deliver and convey information to exhibitions, and with better information and positive impact from materials in those spaces themselves. Materials are so often overlooked as foundational to the sustainability of the built environment. So at its simplest, we're trying to change that at Mindful Materials by focusing the industry on these shared materials challenges in manufacturing and design, and provide education and tools to make it easier for everyone to make better choices. So when Douglas from CambridgeSeven got connected to my colleague Laurel, we were delighted that museum exhibition designers were recognizing the role that they too play in materials decisions. And even better, that they didn't want to reinvent the wheel to start to shift the narrative. Basing their work on the language and framework of the AIA Materials Pledge and the Lighting Advocacy Letter, their Materials Pledge has greater impact because it is aligned with existing language and resources and the work that we're trying to do at Mindful Materials. So we are so pleased to be able to host the pledge and help grow awareness and to be part of hosting the conversation today. And so with that, I will kick it over to Douglas, who will help introduce our panelists and the conversation today. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, couldn't find the unmute button. My name is Douglas, and I'm thrilled to introduce the panelists we have. We have 5 panelists who have all signed on to the Museum Exhibition Materials Pledge, who will be presenting to you. I'm going to let them introduce themselves as they present, but here they are. There's I'll say there's Viviane from the Museum of Vancouver, Cory from the Frost Museum, Leslie from the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, Phil from the Wild Center, Brenda from the Madison Children's Museum, and my name is Douglas. I'm an exhibit designer at CambridgeSeven, and also joining us is Emily from CambridgeSeven. She's going to help us just with some hosting and sorting through the chat for the discussion at the end. Great, let's see. So I just wanted to tell you what the pledge and the toolkit is. So that the pledge is the main thing we're talking about here today, and this Museum Exhibition Materials Pledge, as Jen said, is based on the AIA Materials Pledge, with just a few things tweaked to apply directly to museums. But like the AIA Materials Pledge, it defines sustainability in these 5 categories of human health, social health and equity, ecosystem health, climate health, and circular economy. And by signing in the pledge, this is a letter to manufacturers, and it's a pretty light lift. This pledge, all it is saying is that if manufacturers make better materials, then we will prefer them. And part of this pledge, we pledge to have that conversation with manufacturers, ask questions, ask them like, what is the global footprint of this material and that kind of thing. But it isn't, you're not promising to do anything too drastic for your museum. So we hope that this is kind of a light lift. And then we've also provided this toolkit where it goes through each of these 5 categories. There's also a little bit of project timeline. But then it goes through each of these 5 categories to say, like, if this is a priority for you, these are the things that you can look for, and these are the products that you should really look out for and try to specify. So it goes through each of those 5 different categories. But these things are more aspirational. You're not committing to do all of these things if you do the pledge. They're just, paths that you can go down to look for better materials. So with that, and then it goes into, at the end of this toolkit, it also has some product-specific guidelines that we'll let you look at your leisure. And with that, I want to we'll turn the rest of the time over to our panelists. So these are 5 panelists, as I said, who have signed on to the pledge.
10 minutes.
And we wanted to just get some case studies of what they're doing in their museums, how they're, what's been challenging for them. This is really meant to be a growth mindset presentation where nobody's perfect, nobody's there all the way. We're all somewhere on the path, and we just wanted to, and I applaud their courage for coming in and just sharing what they're doing. We hope that that helps you improve the work at your museums and your design practices. So we'll start with Viviane.
Can everyone see this? And
yes.
Okay, so you can see and you can hear me. We're off to a good start. Well, thank you so much for having me on this panel, and a special thanks to Doug for working on the pledge. And I find this is like a real reference material for us here in Vancouver. And we're thrilled to be expanding as well through an initiative that I'll be talking about. So before I get started, I'd like to say that I'm at the Museum of Vancouver, and the Museum of Vancouver is located on the unceded traditional territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish people. In a nutshell, the Museum of Vancouver is the largest and oldest civic museum in Vancouver. Climate change is now a priority in our programming and our everyday work life. And that means that, for the past 5 years, we've been very intentional about decreasing our use of construction material, mainly through extensive use of reclaimed material and upcycling of display units. So, for example, the Wild Things, an exhibition in 2018, used 70% of the material that came from the film industry that was also reused later on. So it doesn't go to it's not just extending the life of the material for one exhibition, but for many. But the next step for us was really to congregate and consolidate by developing a sustainable design and deconstruction hub at the local level, so in Vancouver. And so who is in that hub? So we have exhibition producers, so art galleries, museums, and theaters. And why theaters is that we felt like I constantly work with designers and artists who also build stage and design stage set design. So we work with similar material and have similar challenges, like storage, for example. So the makers are part of this. Surplus material suppliers, for example, construction sites, manufacturers of material. We have, of course, if we want to do a real system change, we need to involve the next generation of makers. So I have 2 schools with us, 2 design schools working with us. We also work with social innovators, people who've been working for a long time on rethinking their relationship to waste and seeing it as a resource. We have sustainability scholars who are helping us document the process, and city planners. Like I said, storage is an issue when you think about materials. So that's our hub. We were lucky to have funding from the Canada Arts Council for 2 years. We're 8 months into the process. What we do is we meet quarterly. Some of the working group, smaller groups meet more often. We share materials, we learn together. So this week we had a field trip. I learned that there were wood staplers done, for example, very cool. So that when you have structures going into the earth, even the nails will decompose. We met with a startup company that is transforming wood waste into dimensional numbers, super exciting. And we also met with an architect who's looking at developing sound insulation walls made from recycled plastic. Part of the deliverables for this hub is to create a series of design case with modularity and disassembly as top of mind. And so we have a dedicated designer and funding that goes with it to really kind of push those design solutions. And so we're in the process of prototyping. We'll be building for an upcoming exhibitions here at the Museum of Vancouver, and shop drawings will be shared with the larger community on our website. So let me zoom in on a small, but I think meaningful stage project that opened a few months ago at the Museum of Vancouver. So the Reclaim and Repair project, the Mahogany project. So what happens when you create a network, as you know, is you tap into a network of networks. And we got this, I got this call out of the blue, really, of someone working in a cultural organization that had storage. And in that storage, there were multiple piles of mahogany planks that were used between the 50s and 70s in the marine industry. And it took space, it was unused, and they have heard about our upcycling programs. So they wanted to know if we wanted to have it to build, exhibit furnitures like, with risers and plinths and walls. And of course, when we saw this, we realized it was gold, and we were not going to build and paint over this. And at the same time, we were very much aware that this wood is associated with the overexploitation of forests in Central America. The provenance of the wood was impeccable, so we knew it was from Nicaragua and Guatemala. And so if we were to accept this gift, it came with responsibility. And so we had to find ways to somehow help repair the damage caused by the overexploitation of these forests. So hence the repair in the title. So what does the exhibition look like? Really, what we did is we had this big invitation to makers and designers in Greater Vancouver. And we received 65 proposals of objects made of mahogany. And we selected 22 projects. Money was the limitation. The creativity and the quality of the projects were amazing, but we were giving upfront a third of the estimated value of the project for these individual projects to the designers. So the makers received the wood and had a third of the value already to get started. Once the project sold, they will get another third, and the last third goes into reforestation efforts in indigenous-led reforestation efforts in Central America. So what we got is, like I said, 22 projects from a very diverse group of designers. So emerging and seasoned designers, artists. You can see it gives you this is just a small glimpse really at the exhibition. Wall pieces, shoes, furniture, lighting systems, and so we got very excited about the quality of the work. I just want to also focus on the exhibit furniture. So of course the plinths, the walls are made of material that's been previously disassembled and used in other projects, or are given to us by one of the partners. In this case, I think it was trade show flats. So that's one, another kind of design solution for building for longevity. For example, 10 years ago, would not have been a concern. We wanted curves, we would have cut in the wood. Instead, we're doing painted treatment, and it has a similar effect, and it allows us to reuse the plinths and cases much more easily. About the designers and artists, we asked them to also tell us about their approach to sustainable design, and all of them responded in very thoughtful ways. Sheila Sociali Parks, a guitar maker, talked about reconciled wood. So there's at the front local wood at the back, and the mount is made of mahogany. Talks about the shift in her community. The Lock and Mortis we see here are beautiful cadenza, and talk about the importance of not only sourcing locally the material, but also the buyers. And there's, of course, the intersection of always of environmental and social justice. And Kepala Design talks about, and Kepala Design specialize in assistive design, and had noticed a few years ago how the assisted projects were often unappealing aesthetically and made of unsustainable materials. So their firm is focusing on changing that. So what like zooming out now of this project, what we see is really how the material reclamation of this project. So the building of the exhibition, but also the building of the object that became the star of the exhibition are part of a circular project. But at the same time, the making and the planning of the project really shows how we can apply principle of regenerative design. So, making sure that people get paid well or adequately. We had a low carbon exhibition. We have a solid public education component that goes with this. And of course, there's the reparative work that's involved with some of the revenues going back into mahogany forest, and the consolidation of the Sage hub as well. So that's my presentation. I want to make sure I give time to other presenters and questions, but yeah. And so working very hard at closing the loop. Thank you.
Thank you, Viviane. And we are going to try to save some time for questions at the end. So please put them in the chat as Cory's bringing up his presentation here.
All right, ready? Hear me?
We can
see
hear
everything?
You. Yes, everything's
awesome.
Good.
All right. Hello, everyone. So Cory, Keester-O'Mills, exhibition developer at the Phillip and Patricia Frost Museum of Science. We're going on a little journey from Vancouver down to Miami. So you didn't know this was an intercontinental tour. Welcome. We're also just kind of in a very different place from where Viviane is, which is, I think, part of interest. So our museum isn't necessarily that young. We were founded in 1949. However, our building is very young. So our building ground broke in 2015. We opened to the public in 2017. And so it's a very new facility, which has some kind of interesting counter side effects on sustainability. One of them is that the design of our building is beautiful. I do love it. So it's 4 building components. So we have a north and a west wing that have the science exhibitions. The planetarium is the sphere in front. And then in the back, there's an aquarium complex. And then as you can see in this, sort of seeing the corners of this picture, we are on Biscayne Bay in Miami. So we are in a wet, salty marine environment with 4 buildings that are connected with a lot of outdoor spaces, terraces, plazas. So you really get to enjoy the environment of Florida. That means we're also working in the environment of Florida, which can be fun. All right, so we do have the good benefit of having sustainability as one of our core principles. It is in our vision statement that we see science as a tool for addressing the concerns and navigating a sustainable future. And we do have top-down institutional support for sustainability. So there are we have a strong sustainability committee. We have internal structures that support sustainability. When issues are raised, we do have discussions, we try to address them. Our building, since it was relatively new, we were able to achieve gold certification, LEED gold certification in 2019. And then we do have a lot of community environmental initiatives. So just to give you 2 of them, one, we have a program called Museum Volunteers for the Environment, which is at this point almost, I want to say, close to 20 years old, where we have been rehabilitating and restoring over 25 acres of coastal land, removing invasive species, planting native species, and managing them. So we have a small team that goes out weekly to manage our properties, or not our properties, but the properties we're working on. And then we also have a really cool program that also the program is older. It's called Upward Bound in Math and Science, which is a college preparatory program for Title I high school students. And we've actually just done a recent expansion with that program called Impact, called Integrated Marine Programs and College Training, where we're taking students, we're training them on marine conservation initiatives, and we're connecting them with local universities that are doing marine conservation work. And that actually includes like teaching them how to scuba dive so they can go down and do like coral restoration and surveys. So we have a very strong connection to sustainability. It's really built into a lot of our DNA. However, as will probably surprise no one in this meeting of architects and museum professionals, our very large, very beautiful, very expensive building came in over budget and behind schedule. So there were some issues we had in our development, and we had kind of a rocky start. So unfortunately, there were a couple of things that led to it, but really at the end, when the museum finally opened to the public, it was fully stocked with brand new exhibits. And so there was not the funding or the need for an exhibits management team at the museum. So for the first couple of years that the museum was open, we really didn't have anyone overseeing and being responsible for the exhibits. It was facilities maintenance and also just kind of a shared responsibility among staff who were also, understaffed and focused on a lot of things. And so I joined the team a year and a half ago, and to the best of my knowledge, I was the first full-time staff member really focused on exhibit management. And we've added another position in the last 6 months, and so we're kind of picking up and starting to move forward with managing our exhibits, maintaining all of the exhibits, pushing them forward, looking at what we can do in the future. So that's been one of our challenges, is trying to rebuild some of the infrastructure that was lost in those years. Then I mentioned we do struggle and play in a marine environment. So it is beautiful. We have green rooftops with exhibit content. So you see here a corner of our aquarium building. It opens to the air. So you actually look down into the aquariums from the roof and then travel through the building and see the different levels of the water systems. It's beautiful again, but uniquely challenging. We just recently had to replace all of our exhibitions on that floor because the salt damage had just eaten through them, and they were intended to be marine grade metal signage, and it just didn't last 6 years. So that's one of our challenges. And then this might just, I don't know, I'm sure everyone has their feeling for it. Miami has a very interesting vibe. We have when I first started, I tried to work on a project, and I was working with our sign producer, and I asked him to give me a quote, and he just stopped. He's like, "Oh, I don't normally do quotes." Like, what do you, like, how? So there's just a different kind of working with some of our vendors, and that's kind of where we've been stepping in and trying to figure out what to do. So part of this has been developing our vendor list, looking for local resources, people. The sustainability pledge was actually extremely helpful. We did take it to some of our vendors, and we do bring up these questions. And I've had some really, one of my sign producers came back from a conference, and she was very excited. She's like, I asked everybody, like, what's their most sustainable material? And she had a whole deck of things to show. And we got to kind of go through them, talk about them, and talk about, signage that was made of plastic that's theoretically recyclable, but is it actually recyclable in our Miami waste management streams? And so we kind of got to work through some of those questions of what is sustainable and what does that mean and how can we use those materials? Constantly seeking education. So again, the guide was extremely helpful. I'm listening in on a lot of webinars. I'm joining conversations. We're trying to, if we're going to start over, might as well start at the best foot we can. We've been doing a lot of experimentation with different materials, and then this is the hard one, is figuring out what to do and to reduce our waste stream. So how do we reuse exhibit furniture? I love the idea of things being more modular, so you can reuse them as you go from gallery to gallery. All of our galleries were developed very independent of one another, and so they do not easily retrofit to one another. So that's a ongoing challenge that we're working our way through. But like I said, we have been doing a lot of experimentation. We've been getting a lot of material samples. This is just a really quick little experiment that we did. We had an exhibition on mummies. It's called Mummies of the World, a special exhibition. And we developed a little ethics corner where we talked about our museum stance on the ethics of having human remains on display, some of the things that we can learn from them, how to be respectful in the gallery. And then we also opened it up to questions. So this was a visitor feedback wall, and those little questions or answers that they're responding with on the survey, they're cardboard. So it's direct printed cardboard with Velcro on the back. The strip was a leftover piece of carpet that we had because we just did a carpet change in a gallery. And honestly, it was just to see how well the cardboard held up with, 100,000 people picking it up, moving it around. How quickly did it fall apart? And they actually lasted much better than I'd hoped. So that was great. So, and the wall signage, the little panel to the next that says final thoughts, was also printed on cardboard. So it was directly recyclable in our waste stream, and comparable to a lot of the kind of plastic-based signage materials we would typically use indoors. We are still very heavily dependent on vinyl. Like I said, we have a lot of outdoor spaces. We have a lot of big glass windows, and we like using vinyl to kind of dress them up. But we have been trying to identify PVC-free vinyl, post-consumer recycled plastic vinyls, seeing how they hold up. I did just have a vinyl that was up on the wall for a couple of days and just peeled right off. So, we kind of have to do some experimentation, unfortunately. Then with our outdoor signage, that's been one of my real struggles, but also, efforts. So we're looking at different forms of metal printing. So powder coated graphics. We're also looking at direct printing metal. I would love to play with wood and see how we could use maybe some kind of like CNC routed wood details for short-term exterior installations. We're currently, I don't have design pictures for it yet, but we're currently working on a blue carbon exhibit that's supposed to go outside and talk about marine environments and what they do for carbon sequestration. And one of our first concerns was like, how do we tell a story about carbon sequestration and then build an exhibit that is, if possible, at least neutral? If we can get it negative, that'd be better. And that's where we're kind of in research and development, but starting to look at how would we construct this. I'm making no promises yet, but we're having the conversations. We're trying to figure it out. So that is where we are down here in the wet and wild South. So
great, thank you, Cory. We'll have Leslie go next. Leslie, are you able to share a screen, or should I share on my end?
I think I can share.
Okay, go for it.
But okay. Oh wait, you know what? I need to stop sharing really quick. Stop. Okay. Share. Here we go. These notes.
Great, we can see you, and it looks like the presentation is loading from PowerPoint.
Great. Well, I can start. I'm Leslie. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. This is a conversation about just one of the small exhibits of hyper-local exhibit that we're going to highlight, called the D Tree exhibit, standing for Detroit Tree. So the Wright Museum is located in Detroit, Michigan. Our mission is to open minds and change lives through the exploration and celebration of African American history and culture. This is a picture of Dr. Wright, our founder, who delivered about 7,000 babies in Detroit. So everyone's super passionate to support our families and people that come through Detroit. So on our campus, we found 3 dead and dying trees and instead of mulching them or putting them to landfill, we decided to reach out to our neighbors and create a whole wood workshop about 5 years ago in 2018. And from then, we've had a couple more exhibits. So this is the College for Creative Studies. We share a campus. They're just really like maybe 200 feet away from us. I'm super excited that I work at an institution where sustainable systems and sustainability is elevated to our board of directors. And with that, I'm going to show, and the being part of a city, like city of Detroit, that is super green. we took one of the guiding principles from the Detroit Sustainability Action Agenda that was created in 2019 to divert waste from landfill. This is an image of the tree getting cut down. And so this is sort of a project with Dr. Ian Lambert, the graduate dean at CCS, who is my close partner, and all the students that were part of this class, 7 community students with scholarships, and then 6 College for Creative students. So with that, I'm going to jump into a quick little video so that I can give you a little bit more context. So let me see if I'll hear this. Can you hear and see that?
Trees need to be the center of our lives, quote by Davos.
In 2018, several Zelkova trees were found to be dying on the Wrights campus in Detroit, Michigan. With its commitment to be a zero-waste institution, the Wright Museum reached out to its neighbor across the street, the College of Creative Studies, to find a way to save these trees from mulch pile in landfill. Together, they developed a program called the D-Tree Studio Project and invited 12 makers, community members, and students to explore ways to extend the life of these trees in meaningful and profound ways. With an eye toward connecting generations, communicating with the natural world, foregrounding ecological processes, and imagining a more equitable future for the residents of Detroit. These woodworkers brought their considerable skills to meet the challenge.
For me, the D-Tree Project allowed us to, some people being from the Charles Wright Museum, some people being from College for Creative Studies, some people being from the corporate industry, coming together and collaborating, building bridges to help us to be responsible for Mother Earth, and that is being responsible and understanding our relationship to the trees and their relationship to the universe.
So I'm going to stop there and jump back into my presentation. But that was like a little bit of background on this project. So we currently, I think maybe I skipped a slide. So we currently have this exhibit being shown at our museum, where we have then talked about the past, present, and future of Detroit trees. And it's pretty exciting that we really dived in deeply with the Sustainable Construction Toolkit with Doug and CambridgeSeven. And we also worked with recording all of our carbon footprint for this exhibit. We're using the Gallery Climate Guide, working closely with Joyce Lee from Indigo JLD. And so this is our little journey of how we started to really green our exhibit. We reduced our carbon footprint by different ways of bringing our objects over here. So we used recycled cardboard, recycled packaging. The College for Creative Studies has a van. We were able to bring some of the objects over by van, or we walked them over, but really they were probably just a block away. So a lot of the travel carbon footprint was cut down because we were collaborating so closely with our neighbors. We started to green our exhibit by having this kind of graphic within our exhibition space. So not using vinyl, using healthy paint, being able to repurpose a modular wall, using certified wood. And these are all items that are coming right from that toolkit. So I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper. Part of the toolkit talks about the design process of thinking through all of the aspects to be able to green the exhibit. And so this picture kind of represents us in a schematic design sort of situation where we're working with our design and fabrication team, our curation team, of just trying to figure out how we can all green our different processes that we all have. I think what was really interesting in this space was that because we were all holding reducing carbon footprint, as we were sending materials that we were ordering or buying to our consultants, that people started really ideating on how to reduce that carbon footprint. And it just was sort of like, wow, everyone's really embracing this sustainability stuff. This is a picture of us not using so much vinyl because we collaborated with a college, an art and design school. They had students, and this is one of the students who was in the class, and then we later hired her to be part of our internship during the summer to work on this exhibit. But she painted, she's an illustration student, Faith Serio, and she painted the diagram that we used from Ian Lambert on how to actually mill the trees. So this was us just trying to reduce like less toxic materials and the connection to the Cancer Alley. This is a picture where we harvested wood from recycled wood that the college has created. So this is our logo. There's a shout out to like a number of wood elements in the toolkit that people can consider and use. So we're definitely doing that. And then this is just a quick image of how we started to count our carbon. So we counted all of the printing cost, all of our driving, transportation cost, and that amounted for this exhibit to be 1.8 tons of carbon. The Guggenheim also recorded this, and so we were able to get their numbers. They were shipping materials from Brooklyn to Manhattan, and so that amounted to 18 tons of carbon. And then there's another exhibit in London, but they were flying artwork around the world, and so that gave a larger footprint. And so I think the success of this super hyper local exhibit is that that we can be so innovative and be able to like really control how things are moving or being shipped to us. And so that it's really great to sort of see, you know, the exhibition opening full of people so excited about this kind of project. The last project piece that we sort of did in this exhibit was installing carbon dioxide sensors. So this is another pilot project that I'm working on, an initiative within the Wright Museum, where we have built a 3D model of the whole museum. We're creating an Internet of Things museum, so adding sensors to it to give us feedback. These carbon dioxide sensors start to give insight to our curatorial crew of when people are lingering at different parts of the exhibition. And so we can get live data and feedback from you know, being able to do some A/B testing on like what groups are coming in and how do they interact with the exhibit. So the last piece that came from the toolkit is like telling our story. And as you can see from the right, that we have highlighted all of the work that we have done to green this exhibit, all the number crunching we have done. And with that, I invite you all to join our journey. You can visit our website at www.thewright.org. You can go to About and find the sustainability page, or come to Detroit and visit this D-Tree exhibit because it's up until December 17th. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Leslie. We'll hear from Phil. We're running a little over time, so we'll just ask our last two presenters to present as quickly as they can so we can have a little bit of time for presentations. Thank you.
As quickly as I can. Well, thank you all. I appreciate your time, and we'll be done. No. So the Wild Center is a science museum. We're located in upstate New York in the Adirondack Park. We have a long history of sustainability. We were the first museum in New York State to be LEED certified, and we were actually the first building in the Adirondack Park to be LEED certified. We opened in 2006. We'll just keep moving here. What is going on? There we go. What I'd like to talk to you about today is our Climate Solutions exhibition. It opened in July of 2022. And the exhibition focuses on climate solutions based on Project Drawdown. And I just want to share with you today some examples of what we've done. from a sustainability standpoint within this exhibit. So one of the things that we took on was we had all these brochures, and so in our downtime, all the staff was busy folding origami cranes. And so, and the cranes really, we do youth climate summits. We've had them all over the planet. And this was one of the things that was in the original Youth Climate Summit some 13 or 14 years ago. And it's just a symbol of hope. And so it's a central part of our exhibit. Another thing that we did was, as we looked, we were removing the old exhibit. There was a great deal of this grid work in the top of the exhibit, and we moved those. We took down those grids, and we actually used them as railings within the exhibit in order to. Sorry. Hopefully you're not seeing all that stuff. So it was a way to reuse the material that we had on hand and enhance what we were doing. Another thing, these screens were actually in the original museum. They've been there since 2006. And when we went to when we went to design the exhibit, we said, let's leave those there. Let's reimagine how we can use the existing technology in the exhibit in a new way. And so instead of having the screens be just playing a video loop, we actually created a video jukebox. And so because this exhibit has no exterior windows, it's fully in the center of the building. This really adds a good energy and a kind of a natural vibe to the overall exhibit. One of the other things that we do is we are working with stories. So essentially there's 12 stories of local people that are engaged in climate solutions. And rather than having those stories through a sound wand, we used a standard old telephone and some modern electronics, put those together. And what we really have is a sound stick that we've reused old materials to create. And it's very interesting. A lot of the kids that come into the exhibit, they have never seen a phone like that before. So they enjoy the feeling, and you pick it up and it's like the person in the picture is talking to you and telling you the story of what he's trying to communicate. So let's go here. Come on. Another thing we did is rather than throw out some pallets, we use them as wall coverings along the base of the mezzanine. I will say that pallets are surprisingly difficult to deconstruct. So we had some struggles with that, getting them apart, and actually salvaging wood that was useful. The other challenge is that when you think about a lot of the folks that contributed to the design of this space, some of them are very particular about the look and feel of things, as designers will be. And these particular, as you paint things and as you stain things, palette wood, because of its inconsistency, can be challenging to get the right look. So another thing we did was we went and we salvaged stuff. So rather than buying new, we went and we bought a farm sink and a bowling alley to do the counter within this tinkering studio that we had. We found that this farm sink was from the 20s, and to actually connect it, it was not standard. It was not the same kind of plumbing fixtures that you would use today, the distance between the faucets and whatnot. So that's why we came up with something that looks a little bit steampunk here. One of the other things that I found was a challenge was bowling alleys have a lot of nails. I don't know. So as you use different materials, it is interesting to the creativity that goes into the design and the implementation of these things. So this is one of my favorite parts of the exhibit. Basically, this wood was from a small sawmill in Vermont, and this is maple. But typically what's done is maple is looked for the lightness and the purity of the wood. This particular mill took the whole tree, and then they graded out, you know, the light stuff versus the dark stuff, but they sold the dark stuff. So they weren't discarding the materials that would normally be discarded. So within this, you know, we were able to use this and just show that, you know, it doesn't all have to be the perfect stuff. And I find this to be extremely attractive. Another thing we did was we used plywood for a lot of our signage, avoiding, as others have said, the vinyl and with the metal substrates or the acrylic substrates. And we are too looking at, you know, what can we do with CNC machines and what's the future of the signage within the museum as a whole. This bark on the this is actual poplar bark. It's sustainably harvested in a sense of the foresters in Appalachia are recovering this bark. It creates additional income for the folks that are harvesting it. It's very socially responsible within that community. They train people how to harvest this. I recommend these folks. They're terrific. From a circularity standpoint, this carpet was recycled content. They'll take it back when you're done. And it was a very environmentally friendly adhesive that was used for that. And lastly, we use those Lumicore panels within the exhibit because of the recycled content within the panels as well. And I know I'm jetting through this, but this is the last thing. I just wanted to read this. Normally our executive director, Stephanie Ratcliffe, who is a exhibit designer of, you know, I was like a master class working with her. And this is her quote: "Thinking in terms of sustainability decisions becomes a habit of mind once you commit to problem solving in this way. It is a new dimension to your creative skill set and is actually fun, satisfying, and one tangible way to demonstrate organizational values and commitments. The toolkit offers guidance and ideas to help you on this path." And I just wanted to share that because what we've found internally, we don't have an exhibits department here. That's why the director of facilities is talking to you instead of the director of exhibits. And but what's happened is since we've engaged with the pledge, my team is always saying, well, how can we do this in a more sustainable fashion? Is this the most sustainable product that we can use? So we've begun to really take hold of these things. And I think instead of just doing them, we're becoming them. And so I'm very excited about the transition and what the pledge has done for us. And so thank you for your time, and turn it over to Brenda.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, I just want to say thanks to Doug for inviting me to participate in this today. Doug has been a partner in this work for many, many, many years. And so I'm grateful to be here and be learning so much. So thank you. I'm going to try to speed my presentation up a little bit so we have a little bit of time for questions. Madison Children's Museum is located in Madison, Wisconsin, in a community that's about 200,000 people. We have about the same equivalent of visitors per year, 200,000 pre-COVID. First, I just wanted to talk about why green exhibits matter. And, you know, when we started our work nearly 3 decades ago doing sustainable design, we really we're not thinking of it from strictly from an environmental perspective. We're thinking about children's health. And I think for us, it always comes back to what's in the best interest of children. We know that young kids, their immune systems are not fully developed until they're 5 years old, and they are absorbing toxins when they're crawling on carpeting. They put things in their mouths. And so we've had to be really mindful of how do we make the best possible space for children. And we've been doing that work. So that's where our work started. Today, I just wanted to go over a couple principles of green exhibits that we use in our facility, and this will be my presentation will go through this. So design for circularity and disassembly, that whole idea of waste equals food that William McDonough talked about in the mid-90s, the idea of making exhibits that are acting in much the way that nature acts, so that everything is decomposes and is reused. Eliminate waste, eliminate toxins, use local, sustainable, and reused materials, decrease transportation, and promote regeneration. So designing for circularity and disassembly. So this is our early learning space. When we built our new building, which opened in 2010, we set different sustainability goals for each exhibit area. In our early learning space, our goal was to create a space using local materials within 100 miles of Madison, and we wanted to use local, sustainable, and natural materials only. So this hut that you're seeing, which is made out of soil and wheat straw, linseed oil, and beeswax. The roofing is cedar. We use stone, and then the image in the front, you can see some railing posts. The next image, Doug, if you want to move forward, is those same railing posts in a previous exhibit that we opened in 1998, which was our first fully green exhibit. So in 1998, of course, we were really pioneering new ideas, and there weren't a lot of materials available, but we built this early learning space with, again, that straw clay construction, thinking about, deconstructing later and then reusing the materials. So those same posts are in our new facility. So next, eliminate waste. So this is a project we did with the Dane County Department of Waste and Renewables. And the whole concept of really instilling that idea that we need to consume less, both in the way that we make our exhibitions, how can we use the least amount of material possible, but also sending that message out to the public. So this is pretty impressive when you see this driving down the street, and every single object that is on the outside of this mobile exhibition was something that we found in the Dane County waste stream. Perfectly good items. So this is the inside of that trash lab. We wanted to focus particularly on adding the 2 words refuse and redesign in terms of the 3 R's changing to 5 R's. So how can we refuse? And I think the materials pledge does that. How can we refuse materials that are not healthy? And how can we redesign our systems so that we have a safer environment? Next. We eliminate toxins. So this is just a quick example of, we started in 1998, we started trying to think about how we could eliminate plastics in our space, again, because we knew that a lot of the off-gassing, and at that time, many plastic toys were being made with heavy metals. So we stopped using plastics as much as we could, and we switched over to making our fake food with woolen sweaters. So we're trying to eliminate toxins in every way we can. Next. So we also created a green guide for our museum and a green scavenger hunt that helps our visitors know that the materials we're using are not toxic. So we've switched, and we're not using laminates that are toxic anymore. There are, and I think on the toolkit there's resources for this, but you can get laminates that are safe. We are also really thinking through about the wood products that we use and trying to use local sustainable materials that don't have formaldehyde and other additives. Next. Again, using local, sustainable, and reused materials. So this is our log cabin. There's nothing, of course, more sustainable than reusing an old building. So this is our 1838 log cabin that's out in our outdoor space. We tore down a parking lot during COVID and turned it into a park. So this sits in the park. Next. And this is also a central feature of that exhibit called Wonderground. And what's nice about this particular climbing structure is that we're using invasive species to build it. So we're using black locust. So not only are we, building with wood materials that have a long lifespan, but we're also helping regenerate and repopulate our forests by removing the invasive species that threaten biodiversity. Next. We are doing a lot of reuse. So this is one of the climbers inside of our museum. And our goal for this exhibition space was to really, really showcase reuse. So the climbing structure is made out of reused materials. The image in the front there shows a buoy from Lake Michigan, and up in the right-hand corner is where we got it. So this whole climber is made out of reused materials, including the slide, which was all parts and pieces from a slide company of rejects. And there's some farm cisterns in the back and an old car that you can see. And then, of course, reusing the flooring from a gym on the ground there. And again, we didn't take the stripes off because we wanted to celebrate the idea of reuse. Next. Here's basically an airplane that we found that we remade into something else. And so the whole idea of how can you make sustainability joyful, and how can you, help other children and families learn that sustainability is fun, and you can have fun thinking about reuse. Next. Decrease transportation, again, by using materials within 100 miles or 500 miles. We've really tried to limit our resources from within the state of Wisconsin. We can decrease our transportation costs. We also try to decrease our transportation costs by working with local artists and fabricators. So this whole space was made by local community. And then promote regeneration. So the whole idea of how can we think forward to the future, not just thinking about sustainability or resiliency, but how can we actually create environmental stewards for the young people that we serve, and how can we really think forward to the future. Next. And then, of course, we have a green rooftop that sort of decreases our energy consumption. The estimates are by about 30% because of the insulation that it provides. And then again with solar panels. So the whole idea of how can we think about everything we do with a lens to the future. Next. And then lastly, I'm going to speed it up. We have a resource that we developed called greenexhibits.org that basically showcases our work in sustainable design. We're in the process of an update right now. Next slide. So this is, you can go to greenexhibits.org. This, again, we started doing this when, I think LEED certification started in '93. We started working on this in the late '90s. So, but based on environmental building news in the beginning. Next. So this is just an example of what you can find, a glossary of terms. And then there's another section on what materials to use and what materials to avoid with lots of links. Next. And then lastly, I just wanted to say that the materials we do use in our exhibits do make a difference on our visitors. This young child, for example, has no idea, that he's hugging a tree, but we know that what the senses, his senses are coming alive because of using this material rather than regular construction equipment. So I would just like to say that, yeah, the work that we're doing matters a lot, and let's keep going. So thanks, Doug, and thanks everyone.
Great, thank you, Brenda, and thank you to all the presenters. And it's kind of brave to put yourself out there and say I'm a sustainable person, because we're all on the journey. But I saw lots of exciting things in all your presentations. We could open it up now to some questions. While we're doing that, I know we're over time. It's 1:03, but if anyone wants to stick around and ask questions, I'm able to stay around anyway. I did want to throw a couple of resources in the chat. This first one is a, let's see, I need to do to everyone. This first one is another guide that I found from the Center for Sustainable Curating in Canada, which is a really excellent guide about sustainable exhibitions. I just dropped that in there. And then there's one more, if you're really interested in low carbon footprint. This is the design museum in London did a great museum exhibit called the Waste Age. And there's lots of information there about the really detailed analysis on climate footprint that they did. So I wanted to share those two new resources. And let's open it up to questions for anybody who wants to stick around. Do we have anyone still here? Yes, we have 70 people. Any questions? But did any come up in the chat where the people want to discuss?
Doug, I can let's go through that chat really quick, and then we can see.
I think a lot of those were answered in the chat, but some of them we may have missed some.
Yeah, I know early on, Paul Harrison asked a question about, as a conservator, how do you know old wood is not importing insects?
Well,
okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So sorry. So we work with our conservators. We freeze the wood. We make sure that it goes into plastics. We freeze it, and it doesn't actually live close to the collection storage. Of course, it stays up in the gallery areas. So that's how we manage not to drive our conservator crazy.
Wonderful. Let's see, what else do we have here?
I see one question about can someone address budget using sustainable materials? Does anybody want to comment on that?
It's a great one.
I guess I can comment on it from our perspective. It's a trade-off. Yes, when we installed a floor that was made out of an old gym, it did cost more money, perhaps in the labor. It was less money in the material itself. But I think that the upside, of course, is that we have a great story to tell that people see every single day. And so we found that the benefit is much greater than any additional cost. Yeah.
And one time I remember you telling me, Brenda, that you feel like sometimes your museum is more sustainable the less budget you have, because you have to get creative and scrappy and just like find stuff near you. So I think that can be true, not always, but especially when you're thinking about circular economy, reusing materials. That does come with labor and other things, but it can be, there are ways to make it not always more expensive.
If I can just add
to
that,
please.
Well, we prefer to put the money into people than the material that may be more toxic. And like you said, there's more cost. For us, it's like the delivery. Like we have to figure out, we don't have a truck, and so when we locate material and people donate, it usually doesn't come with the delivery service. So it's a bit more kind of logistics, but we get used to it. And material longevity, it lasts longer, the way that we design it. So all in all, it's about the same.
Wonderful. There is a great question in the chat from Matt. He's wondering if your communities have recognized and or supported your efforts in sustainability, and if it's led to new memberships or new donors. Love that question.
I can answer that from our
Thanks,
perspective
Brenda.
in Madison, that indeed our work has increased. There's a lot of community support for what we do. So during COVID, for example, when we had to lay off, 3/4 of our staff, we think because of the stories that we tell and because we included so many people in helping us, that rallying cry of saving the museum or whatever really helped, because so many people felt invested because we asked them to help us with the building a sustainable museum. So I would say the answer is yes.
I see a question from Natalie saying, is the direct to wood direct to substrate printing on wood in high traffic areas, has anyone seen that it chips off, and how are you ensuring that the ink doesn't chip off? Anybody have experience with that?
Our experience is that it doesn't chip off. It's printed and kind of imprinted into the wood, so it stays.
We often will recommend,
Yeah, we just it was, the printing is into the wood, and then we just put a clear coat on top, and it's all, you know, a lot of it's in reader rails, and so there's kids on it, there's handprints, but it cleans up good, and it seems to be pretty durable.
Great. Any other questions? Let's see.
I know there was one question about which firms did you hire for exhibit designs for these sustainably produced exhibits? Are there any resources in that regard that the panel can share? Anyone?
I think my contacts would help a lot. I think in terms of what I found is you develop a community of practice with students who, as they finish their degree in architecture and design, they get to see how more senior or seasoned designers work in like within those sustainability parameters. And I feel like they've been groomed, and like right now we have a roster of half a dozen easily of very strong designers working with us.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I know, Douglas, just in deference to time, I'm wondering if we should wrap up now.
Yep, sounds
and
good.
Then we can work to, I'll work with the panelists here, and we can share out maybe some contact information for follow-up questions, as well as the presentation shared and the recording. So stay tuned for more information from us.
And I just wanted to encourage everyone to sign the pledge. So if you can go to the Mindful Materials site, you can sign the pledge, and you can add your logo to join these 5 great institutions and many others. You can be a designer, a fabricator, or a museum. Anybody who designs and builds museum exhibits. So please sign the pledge and join us.
Thank you all very much for your time today. Thank you, panelists. This was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Right. Bye.